Subject of this presentation has to do with the presentation of the gospel, or the teaching of revelational truth, in the secular, pluralistic school environment. As some of you know, my wife and I live in Europe, and we have recently become UK citizens. We are now subjects of Her Majesty, as well as remaining American citizens, since it is possible to be a dual citizen these days. And it seemed to me that it would be interesting for you if you learned a bit about the situation relative to religion in the public schools in England, and then we moved on to see what can be done in the presentation of the gospel here in the United States under different constitutional conditions. In England, there is a state church. In the words of the bidding prayer at the lawyer's church, at the barrister's church, Temple Church in London, it is the Reformed branch of the Holy Catholic Church established in this kingdom. There, the problems of ACLU, prayer in the public schools, worship in the public schools, simply doesn't exist. What exactly is the English situation in this regard? Well, of course, it has both negative and positive aspects. At the time of the Elizabethan settlement, a theory was developed called comprehension, from the Latin comprehendo, meaning to include. And the idea was that if there is a state church, that state church needs to embrace, comprehend the maximum number of people in the populace that it can do. And therefore, as I'm sure many of you know, the Anglican Church has developed as an inclusivist church, having various theological emphases. The 39 Articles are broad enough theologically that they can be interpreted in a number of directions. It can be shown historically that in the first generation, Anglican theology was a Lutheran theology. Theologians came over from Wittenberg. There is an inn in Cambridge, still known as the German Inn, because of the presence of these theologians, and they had considerable influence on the first generation of Anglican theology. The works of two American specialists in this area are interesting. C.M. Jacobs, The Lutheran Reformation in England, and Czernagel, Henry VIII and the Lutherans. Later on, a strong Calvinist emphasis came into the Church of England, and this is the movement which today is generally known as the Low Church movement. And then in the 19th century, the Anglo-Catholic revival took place. Cardinal Newman, who eventually went over to the Church of Rome, and Kebler and others. And the result of this is that today you have a number of different theological emphases within the church. On the negative side, this means that there are some fairly bizarre representatives of Anglicanism. David Jenkins, the former Bishop of Durham, for example, his statements about our Lord were so deviationist that Muslims have prepared a tract which they use in England, pointing out that, after all, even the Bishop of Durham agrees with the Muslim view of Jesus. I had a nice little debate with the bishop some years ago at the Sherlock Holmes Society of London. He was invited because he said he would read Holmes on a desert island. And I pointed out the difference between the bishop and Holmes was that Holmes insisted on facts as a basis for drawing conclusions, whereas the bishop insisted on speculation rather than fact as the basis of theological activity. In any case, by the year 2000, the majority of clergy in the Church of England will be evangelical. The majority. And the reason for this is that in the last generation, the evangelicals have virtually dominated the area of theological education. People like F.F. Bruce, a generation ago, had a plan to be sure that, insofar as it was possible, the clergy of the church would be educated from sound evangelical bases. And some of you have read about the Lambeth Conference, the most recent Lambeth Conference, where the liberals were
Sample complete. Ready to continue?